I know over the past we've had conversations where you've had a highlight to me. You know what? You're making a presumption, but you're doing it without having a lot of information. And that information that you're missing could drastically change the outcome that you could actually be able to create for yourself. So I would love for you to be able to kind of walk through it because I got the lesson. And then I started seeing every single time that I went to do it to go, okay, now I know to be able to catch it. And when I can catch it, then it allows me to start asking better follow-up questions and be more intentional about the outcome that I want to be able to get, as opposed to just basing it on past experience, because past experience is just that, it's the past. What I'm trying to do is dictate my future and my present. So when once people are able to identify and they know that they're making an assumption, now that you're aware of it, now how can you start to be more intentional about it?
Well, to then make that next step, which is to say, this is what I believe, but
Hmm.
then we have to be aware of the fact my belief is what I believe to be true.
Okay.
It exists in itself. It's not an action. The action doesn't take place until we move. And now when we move, we no longer believe something's true. We presume it's true. Why? Because we have skin in the game. So that if I bought a business
Hmm.
or accepted a partnership with you, I'm no longer believing that it's true. I believe it's true, but more importantly, if I'm wrong, there's a consequence. So I would encourage people to first of all, disconnect, this is what I believe, from what I'm willing to do. And then I would say that once we presume that based upon my belief, I'm going to take an action, I would say that the most important thing that I could do is to evaluate my expectations around the consequences, is to understand just because I took an action doesn't mean that the outcome is going to be based upon my belief. They're disconnected. Just in the example that I gave,
Hmm.
I bought the stock based on my belief that I didn't buy it knowing it's going to go down, but I certainly bought it knowing it could go down.
Right. Right.
Therefore, now the question is, am I going to panic and sell it because it went down? Well, no, because I knew that was a possibility,
Hmm.
and that was in the realm of my risk tolerance, right? So the question is, I would then say to people, consider once you take an action, what risks are you willing to take? Because if you now analyze the risk, that will have an impact on the action you're willing to take.
Absolutely. One of the things that I find is as common as a cold is that people will say a lot of things and they can make declarations and statements, but my understanding and in my experience, or as in this case, my belief is I can't give that any real merit until you're in this situation and there's consequences. Like until there's something you stand to lose and I can hold your feet to the fire, then you can say anything that you want, you know? So it's something that I think this is the power of a follow-up question. This is the power of understanding. If you don't understand what you stand to lose, well, I'll put it this way. In entrepreneurship, there are different types of entrepreneurs. There are some that will take the leap because they're focused more on what they stand to gain, and they'll deal with whatever the loss could be. And then there are the people that are more risk averse, where they're so focused on what they stand to lose that it may slow them down from being able to focus on what they stand to gain. So
Right.
consequences, I think, are a really big thing. And then understanding the risk, it allows you to be able to, again, be more intentional, but it also allows you to be able to ask better questions and interact with people better because you're not going to make a statement if you know what you stand to lose and you can back yourself into a corner. I think it's a little bit different now because there was a time where if someone got something wrong, you had to give a make good. Now we're in a time where accountability is a little bit different. I know I made a purchase on Amazon. I said, okay, well, I'm seeing double orders. I need you to remove the order. And they're like, no, no, don't worry about it. We got it. I said, I don't really believe you. I need to make sure you pull it out of the app. I don't want to get double billed. I ended up getting double billed anyway. So I called back in and I said, well, you know what? I need you to return it. Well, here's what you need to do. And I was like, no, no, you don't seem to understand the situation. I did everything I was supposed to do. And now you're taking the accountability that's supposed to be on you and putting it back in my lap to tell me how I'm supposed to make your job easier. So I think we're in a different era now where there's an adjustment that needs to be made with those things. But I think that also comes back to consequences because there are no consequences for them. Like their
Well,
consequence would be, don't shop here anymore.
exactly. Well, and one of the things, by the way, I'll make 2 points. One,
Mm,
helping your clients understand which person they are, the person who is driven by their expectation of the benefit versus the person who is reluctant to move because of their fear about what they may lose.
mm,
That's where a great benefit that you can bring to the table, because once somebody understands that they're being driven by their belief one way or the other, every decision that they make after that is going to follow suit with that
yes,
belief.
yes.
So if you're able, and when you're able to speak with your client and to help them understand and identify where they are,
Hmm.
they then have a choice as to whether or not that's where they want to be, or whether or not they want some support in terms of moving or putting some different parameters on those limiters, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm afraid of what I'm going to lose. Well, that fear is driven by the unknown,
Hmm.
right? And so instead of talking about what you do next, we ought to maybe talk about where that fear is coming from.
Yes.
Right. And by the way, that was exactly why the first book I wrote in negotiation realm was From Fear to Fearless.
Yes.
Right. So because if fear is stopping you from moving forward, it doesn't matter what you believe because you're never going to take an action that beyond the limits of that fear. So there's
Right.
a process in going back. And if we can help people identify this is what it is, so is that where you want to be? Because if we have a client that wants to realm, that just means they may want to take a very conservative
Hmm.
approach.
Hmm.
So we can be helpful in helping them analyze what the risks of various decisions are,
Absolutely.
and then give them more confidence and in fact help them limit the risks. Now, at some point, will also be able to highlight for them the difference between, had you made this decision versus this decision,
Hmm.
the benefit that you left on the table is here to look at. Now, are you continuing to be willing to lose this much benefit in the face in order to protect your fear?
Yes.
Right. So, and then over a period of time, they're going to evolve and will involve and be. And that's why I think the role of that you play with your clients is so important. That's your value to them.